Just watch me love myself. That's all I want. Got what I want. That's all I want. I'm not sorry.
I'm Claire Fallon.
And I'm Emma Gray.
And this is Love to See It, an obsessively detailed recap podcast about The Bachelor and other pop culture that makes us laugh, cry, and curse the patriarchy.
We can't live with these shows, and we can't live without them, but we can break down every juicy moment and unpack all the weird messages these shows send us about love, sex, and dating.
Stop, drop, roll. Stop, drop, roll. Fire. Can you keep up? I like love it.
Welcome to Love to See It, a show about the American education system, and specifically the value of extracurricular activities and athletics to early childhood development.
Yeah, it's about being a hot teacher and class being in session. It's about basketball and a shot at love. Specifically, of course, Michelle Young's Shot at Love, because it's the 18th season of The Bachelorette, and it's the premiere episode. We're going to be talking about Michelle's intro package. We're going to be meeting all of her men as they exit the limo. And of course, we are going to have the very first scandal of the entire season. I can't wait.
Oh, so much to dig into. And luckily, we have a seasoned expert here with us today to help us ring in Michelle's season. BFF of the pod, who we have missed so dearly, actor Allison Williams.
Hello. I'm so thrilled to be here. I mean, just feels like home.
We're so happy you're back.
I feel very at home right now. I feel comfortable. I feel ready to just sink into Michelle's beautiful bed of 30 men. That's a weird sounding metaphor, but let's go with it.
I was like really getting some very specific visuals when you said that. It's great. But let's dive in here. Let's start recapping specifically with Michelle. We get a little glimpse of her normal life as a very good teacher in an elementary school.
With 4 students.
Just your standard
class size.
Your standard
public
5th
school.
grade class. 4 very charming and telegenic students.
I almost rewound the math that she was teaching at the beginning of the episode to be like, I should know this, and I don't. And then I had this moment of such bliss where I realized that I don't have to know that. And I engineered a life for myself where I didn't have to know what it was that she was talking about. I did once. I don't anymore.
Yeah. You know, in like actual 5th grade textbooks where there will be the little, sidebar that's like math in everyday life. And it's someone who grew up to be a baker. And they're like, wow, I'm so glad I know about fractions now because I use them all the time in my bakery. Just to illustrate that even if you don't think you'll be a mathematician, you'll still use math in everyday life. I didn't listen to those, and I'm doing fine. Don't learn math, kids. It's a waste. It's a waste of time.
Unless your teacher is Michelle, in which case you won't be able to help it because she's so
good.
Beautiful, charming, about to date 30 men, and her students are absolutely scandalized by this, which I loved. One of them was like, that seems like a lot.
At that age, when you find out your teacher has a significant other, it's a scandal. You're like,
oh yeah,
oh my God, first of all, you leave this building ever. Second of all, you have feelings and a life unto yourself that it has nothing to do with us, your students. It's always a revelation when your teacher reveals themselves to have things going on.
And I went to Catholic school, so not only was it a scandal to me, a child, if I found out my teacher was dating, it was like a little bit it wasn't particularly smiled upon by the administration.
It was a scandal in the eyes of God.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I hope that you are having a very chaste courtship. Certainly not making out with 30 guys on TV. But, for Michelle, her students seem supportive, if a bit squicked out. They're like, go on, find your love, Miss Young. And with that, Michelle introduces herself while dribbling the ball and driving for a layup. She is our basketball queen. She is our bachelorette. All of the things that we look for in a woman.
She is so beautiful that I found myself getting distracted while she was talking and imagining myself as a 5th grader trying to focus on what she said. I was like, that would not go well. I would fail every class that she taught because I'd just be spaced out looking at her face.
Yeah, I was just like, Michelle, drop the skincare routine. The people need to know. I think a lot of it's genetics, unfortunately for me, but still, she's just radiant.
Fortunately for me, I never had any radiantly stunning teachers growing up. Just like, that would have been too much for me as well. We do meet Michelle's family. We see some beautiful childhood photos of all of them together. And she says that she didn't date until senior year of high school. And dating has never been easy. I always enjoy when a bachelor or bachelorette says something like this. Or like, oh, dating's always been so hard for me. And they're like 21 years old. And you're like, I didn't really start dating until I was older than you are now. Like, what are you talking about?
This was Serena's big thing in Paradise. She was like, never in my whole life, in all my years of dating.
She's like, since my last very serious relationship that ended like 1 year ago and that began when I was 19. Okay,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I didn't even really know you could date in high school. Like, apparently everyone else was doing it. But she has also the difficulty of having a really high bar because her mom and dad have a beautiful, powerful relationship that she has always wanted to have for herself.
They're adorable, and I just have a real soft spot for that like sweet little Minnesotan accent. My dad's whole side of the family is from Minneapolis, and so I was really felt like I was watching one of my aunts talk when it was her mom, and that was just really heartwarming.
Yeah, her mom is really helpful. She's like, yeah, just find someone exactly like your dad, the kindest and most wonderful person in the entire world who is my everything. And I was like, God, I guess I do see why Michelle is single. Like, that is intimidating.
It's such a high bar. And also they're just like glowing, looking at each other. And I'm just like, this is truly great. It's fantastic. It's also quite a standard to have to try to meet.
Yeah,
when
seems
you're
difficult.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're going into it this way, it's a little bit like, just get ready.
But Michelle is ready. She's like out here dancing on a bridge.
They made
driving.
That poor girl with just like a PA in a bush and a drone that no one could see in the sky run down a public bridge and do a twirl and scream. I was like, you are a good sport.
Look, she's putting in the labor. She's the bachelorette. She knows what comes along with it. And she's like, I put on a gown. I shoot hoops into diamonds.
Yes, but there was something about that particular mission they sent her on because the camera was so far that it just must have looked absolutely batshit because there was no one near her. Usually, I feel like
the TikTok generation is like inured to the embarrassment of this.
Very possible.
But the TikTok generation, would they ever do something that corny? You know what I mean? Like, the TikTok generation is always filming music videos on their phones on the sidewalk while I'm trying to just go to the park. But they're not running down a bridge and doing a twirl and going, I'm the Bachelorette, you know?
In like a side
That's
part,
true.
if you will.
A side part of all
no
things.
side parts, of course.
We have to talk to Michelle about the fact that she is exposing herself as older than 23 on national television. We see her driving a red convertible through a wind farm and arriving at a resort in Indian Wells, California. There was some sort of music playing all through this one. I don't know what it was, guys. I think it was the music. The vibe of this whole intro bit felt very different to me than usual. The music, I think, was different from their usual type of selection. It was very, like, synthy and, like, light, like, hold music almost. Like, the kind of hold music where you're like, wow, this is cheerful for hold music. Or like the soundtrack of like a montage in a low budget Netflix show. Like, it just didn't sound like ABC's The Bachelorette music to me. I was like, I'm not getting The Bachelorette like ambiance from
maybe
the
they've had to
made.
uncouple it from Chris Harrison's voice. Like, I didn't notice the music, but it's possible that they've had to like kind of redo the score.
I also feel like they were trying to let the audience know, like, we're back, baby. This season is fun. Like Hades might have been kind of a traumatizing slog
we
by the end.
We spent money on this season.
Yeah, exactly. We spent money. Look at her gown. Look at the diamonds just falling from this basketball net. Like, this is a good time. And I feel like the music was like an attempt
I feel
to
like
set
it
that
was
mood,
like
if
the
not a
music-
successful
The
one.
music was a misfire to me. I usually don't even really notice the music. And I was
Right,
like, this
I think
music
you're not
sounds
supposed
cheap,
to.
was my feel. I was like, this sounds like sound library, like music that you would just, like hire an orchestra for Michelle. You know what I mean?
Cut to your next interview is with the orchestra that spent weeks recording the score for this episode. I'm
To
so
be
sorry.
making a public apology to the creators of the beautiful new soundtrack of The Bachelorette. And Michelle has arrived at the resort where this will all be happening. She's ready. And I think we have a little clip of Michelle expressing her mindset as she heads in.
Tonight is a huge night. It's game time. Warm-ups are over. You're lacing up your shoes one last time, and you're about to step out onto the court. But this court is covered in roses, and I'm gonna be wearing stilettos instead of sneakers.
It's not subtle.
Wow.
I have to say, as I'm listening, each time I listen to it, I'm like, did they write that for Michelle? And she was like, really? And they were like, no, you have to say it.
Of course they wrote that for Michelle. There is no other option.
She's not just like spontaneously producing these.
She's like, you know what I thought would be fun? You know how I play basketball?
Stay with me.
Let's go with that. I'm not sure the people realize yet. But we move right from this little clearly rehearsed and scripted speech into
The court is covered in roses. That's how I would
covered in
describe The
roses.
Bachelorette. It's like a basketball game, except that there are roses just everywhere, all over the ground. Yes, we start meeting some of the men in their sort of intro packages that we get for a select few. First, we meet Chris S. He is from New Orleans and he lives in LA. He's like, I'm a California Cajun man. And then he spikes the volleyball. And I feel like that really sums up Chris. Like, he thinks he's really fun and funny.
Sure does.
And that's like his
Oh, yeah.
personality.
And he's brave. He's not afraid for us to know that he grooms his eyebrows.
the new masculinity. He's
And
like, I'm
he's
so
goofy.
masculine.
Yep. And he's goofy because he wears floaties in the ocean. And that's how you know. If you have ever wondered, how can I tell if someone's goofy? It's if they wear floaties in the ocean.
Yeah, he's like, look, I look like the human equivalent of a Ken doll, but I wear floaties. So
Yeah.
I have personality.
I look like I can swim, but I can't. And that's fun. I think that's pretty goofy of me.
My favorite thing that he said, and I'm sure we have the same one, is that she wears her heart on her shoulder.
Yeah, to the very traditional saying. Everyone, sometimes you just go out and your heart is just exposed, sitting on your shoulder like a little parrot. I died. I absolutely died when he said that.
He's like, most people wear their hearts on their sleeves, but that's too
passé.
normie for Michelle. She's different. She's special. She perches
Perched.
It's
Perched
higher.
on her shoulder.
It's more.
I perched
it's more
my heart.
80s, 90s, the fashion that's coming back. It's a shoulder pad, but it's a heart. It was when you guys were doing the character bios, the guy bios, and you were talking about the vulnerability thing. I was laughing so hard because the idea of just wanting a very vulnerable person and then cut to Chris being like, she wears her heart on her shoulder. And I was like, well, that's vulnerable. If your heart is just on your shoulder.
Yeah. He's like, I love that I could just reach out and grab it, Next up, we see Joe, the real estate developer. He basically, I guess, it seems like he does sort of house flipping. Like, we see him like really in there sanding cabinets and stuff that they do on HGTV. And he and Michelle, he's the one who's like the same as Michelle. They graduated the same year. They both played basketball really competitively. They're both from Minnesota. And he's like, I think her smile is top notch. That's good. Gotta like her smile.
Smiles are good, Claire. Okay.
I was distracted the whole time by how he was doing the selfie videos because it makes your arm look so long. We just got like the full gaze down his arm throughout. I know Joe's arm better than any other part of Joe at this point. Clayton grew up in Missouri with 2 brothers, which he describes as being like a mini fraternity, which I love because that is what fraternity
literally that is what it means. Yeah.
You could almost say that a fraternity is like a big version of having 2 brothers.
A brotherhood.
He also played football, so they both played college sports, which means they're the same probably. And
Major theme here. These men are like, my defining characteristic is I played a sport and I know a teacher. The teacher's probably my mom. And I like my
always.
mom.
Yeah. Can we talk about this though? Because I was I was flashing back to college when I had a lot of friends who were athletes who, as I was reflecting on it, were almost entirely in relationships with other athletes. I really do think it's like a very specific version of college. And we are now watching the post-grad version of that dating pool. And it's like, did you have to stay sober for a whole season during college? They just have these like weird experiences in common. And I realized that I was going to have to put myself back in that ecosystem to remember why it is so relevant that all of these people did the same extracurricular.
it is so funny the way they talk about it is as if it's like there are 2 kinds of people, the kind of people who played college sports and the other kind. But it is sort of true. Like the lifestyle is so different. Like you're up early at practice. Like, I mean, they're all like basically working an unpaid, like intense job the whole time. It is very different. And so, as much as I mock it, they're probably right to a certain extent. And
it would just be funny if someone was like, I was a college English major, and so I feel like I can relate to.
I would really love that.
I mean, we all like to stick to our own, like we all want to, marry other journalists, for example, or other English majors or other people who did drama club. What could be better than 2 people who did drama club trying to run a household together?
What could be less annoying than 2 people who did drama club?
What children could be luckier than the children of such a union? But it's the teacher thing is hysterical. It comes up again and again. It truly is like all these guys are like, I've always wanted to marry my mom, except my mom didn't play college sports. So like if I could just like
marry these 2 things, then I can literally marry
that,
the final product.
Yeah.
That.
Brandon J. describes himself as a fun guy who's into snowboarding, football, and basketball. He describes this as doing it all. It's like, I do it all. Snowboarding, football, basketball.
What else is there?
All the things you want to do.
That's all I could think of.
You're like, maybe there's baseball, but I don't know. That doesn't even fit in. Snowboarding, football, basketball. You got the whole year covered. You're done.
Yeah, baseball isn't part of it. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
But now he's ready to start a family. His parents worked his whole childhood. He had to raise his brother, so he's ready to get right back into it. Nate is from Winnipeg and lives in Austin, and he is very tall.
And his dog is very cute.
His dog is very, very cute. He is very, very cute. He's very, very tall.
Yeah.
6'8".
The question is he hot or is he just tall? No, he's
both.
He's both. That's a potent combo right there. His mom is a teacher, so he wants to also marry a teacher because he knows that teachers can have conversations. And, normally you're just out there interacting with women. Can they have a conversation? Only if they're a teacher. So, you've got to keep an eye out for that. It's tough.
Especially non-superficial conversations.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Most of us are having superficial conversations, but teachers never are. That is their trait. Chris G is from Halifax. He's a speaker with a nonprofit. It actually sort of sounds like he gives like sort of talks to kids of the sort that maybe you would have at like an all school
Either in
assembly or
schools.
something.
That's what I was thinking. I was
Yeah.
picturing
Oh,
an
gosh.
assembly.
Yes.
Also, this is the man that wants a vulnerable woman.
Well, this man is going to have to become vulnerable by talking the way he naturally talks occasionally, because his voice has some kind of like a performance thing going on that made me very uncomfortable many
It's like a
times.
spoken word cadence, but all the time.
It's interesting. He is from Halifax, and I was like, is that a Halifax thing that they sound like
No.
they're doing spoken word all the time? Okay,
No.
thank you. He's interrupted by Tasha and Caitlin, who are snooping on Michelle's behalf. So they snoop on a couple guys who are all like extremely neat. Like they all have insanely well organized hotel rooms. That is not what they would have found if they had stopped by my hotel room.
I know. I was really thinking in shame about how messy I am when I go to a hotel. I'm like, this isn't my space. I'll be packing all of this up again. Like,
Let me distribute it far and wide.
yeah, exactly. Like a backpack in one corner, half my clothes in the other.
Can we talk about this though? Like, to me, very clearly, in terms of them going into the different rooms, I believe what happened is like earlier in the day, Ryan had like pulled out his binder with his like travel info or something. Someone peeped a bunch of papers and they were like, okay, we need to contrive a scenario where you go to just some random rooms that are going to be in the intro packages for the show. And then you're going to go to the only room that actually matters. Right?
A producer had to have seen this Ryan packet. I mean, it was very
And
clearly
his
labeled.
little drawing.
So
It was
Sorry, I'm getting ahead. I just
we'll get there barely.
They stop in on a couple guys, and then we meet Ryan on a tractor. Ryan was born on the family ranch where he now works.
The Raisin Ranch.
The Raisin
Oh wait, but I
Ranch.
made us skip Spencer, the financial crimes analyst.
Oh, yeah. Well, we see him for
Sorry.
a very brief moment because they meet Spencer, and then they basically are like, let us look at your room. Like, we don't get to see much of Spencer.
And he's like, he's cute, but we don't really glean much other than the fact that he is a financial crimes analyst and he wants to make the world a better place. So that's nice.
He
for
likes inspiring
Spencer.
the youth and the next generation, as opposed to
Unlike
the
so many
hordes
of us
who hate doing that.
hate doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, fuck the kids, you know?
I would love to see a guy come in with that strategy and just be like, I think that my charisma is strong enough that Michelle will overlook the fact that I am like, fuck them kids. Ryan is our raisin prince, and we see him working the land on his family raisin farm. We see him in tight-fitting jeans and a pristine button-down and perfectly groomed facial hair, just like working that land. Looking, I'm going to say, like the most groomed working farmer I have seen outside of the Hallmark Channel. It's a very put together look. But he's like, I have this great work ethic because of my farming. I can plow a field. If you know what I mean.
Never heard that joke before.
He makes a reference to a lunch pail, which honestly made me believe that this is really his life, because lunch pail is a phrase that was retired about 70 years ago.
It actually gave me like such a, and it, because I say this not thinking I'm sure he's like a working farmer. Like, why would I doubt that? But it did smack a little bit of cosplay to me. It's like I put on my jeans and my work boots and I get my lunch pail and like I go out to my tractor. Like,
I just want to see the actual farmers on the other side of the tractor, like, no, to the left, to the left.
Like, stop ruining this.
It's a whole year
our
of corn.
crops. Yeah.
Or raisins.
Raisins.
Ryan is the person whose room is clearly the target of this little Tasha and Caitlin
search
investigation.
They fully just go through his suitcase. Yeah. They're like, oh, what could we be looking for? We must probably rifle underneath all of his clothes and take his suitcase apart. What is this? A folder.
So it's basically a dossier, like all of these papers and spiral bound notebooks full of strategy materials. He has lists. One thing I took note of and kind of read through was a list of people who did well on the show to emulate, like Jason Tartick and Mike Johnson, Blake
And
Horseman.
Blake Horseman.
Yeah.
Only
I was
watch the Bachelorette stuff for Blake.
I was like, have you heard of Stagecoach, sir? Things can go
They canceled
awry.
it forever as a result of Blake Horseman.
And that was a proportionate reaction, as far as I can tell.
Check the cockiness at the door.
He has lists of strategies for getting good edits, for getting attention. He has stuff about how to avoid a villain edit. He has, suggestions of things for research, like old episodes to watch. It's just like very in depth. I think that, did this guy seem to you like something that is maybe normal, but the show just is using it for drama? But it's like, okay, I can understand why he'd do that. Or did this strike you as like very weird?
It struck me, honestly, like he doesn't have a ton of EQ and has relied on these methods to help him through situations that are going to be like a little bit weird socially for him. I went back and forth, like honestly, then later when when she addresses it and he just can't string an honest sentence together that doesn't directly conflict with what he's just said, then I was like, all right, this isn't great. However, I also saw in real time why it might be a good idea for him to be prepared for things like this, because he's just not good on the flies. I think this is also the guy who said he loves like spreadsheets and stuff in his bio. So this is
real foreshadowing.
Yeah, we saw a lot of foreshadowing there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have more on this when we actually see Michelle go through the material. So
this is just a teaser, really. But it's like, let's file this away for a later time.
I thought it was interesting that the show showed us this here, because they could have held the whole reveal for later. And it came so early, actually, that I was like, it's too early for me to be disappointed in this guy. Like,
oh, that's interesting.
I haven't gone high up enough yet on the roller coaster to have a plunge. It just is more like having like a jolt on the way up or something. It was like an odd narrative choice to me.
Or they assume that there's going to be enough drama later on that they can just like throw this one out real early, which is bold, honestly.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with the gentleman's limo exits.
Can you keep up? I love it.
And we're back. Let's get to the limo entrances. Michelle shows up for the night looking absolutely gorgeous in a gold chainmail gown with cutouts. Just only a specific few people can pull this off, and she really looks amazing.
Yeah. It's me and Michelle. It's just the two of us.
Claire has that gown, and I think you should wear it every day.
I do, and I always get a lot of positive comments at daycare pickup. People think it really suits me, so
you're very glamorous.
Thank you. But let's talk about these limo exits. I actually thought that Michelle was kind of bringing a very different energy than I expected at the beginning. She seemed very calm and like composed, not really throwing off a lot of energy. And I was like, oh, I think she might be nervous, but it's manifesting as being just very like even keeled.
Yeah, elegant and contained.
She's someone who has learned to do a lot of really good breath exercises. Like she has calmed down her heart rate before exiting the limo.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I feel like some of the men take note at how composed she is, and it makes them more nervous.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that too. I think that it's a sign that she's nervous. Like Tasha and Caitlin are like whooping and like, oh, look at you, you're stunning. And she's like,
she's like I am prepared. I have to give a lot of speeches and be really front and center for the next like 12 hours that it will take for us to reach morning and thus the end of the rose ceremony.
Yeah. So the first limo pulls up and we start with Nate. And Nate tells her that his name is Babatunde Olufumi Robert Nathaniel Olukoya, but his friends just call him Nate. Michelle is a head shorter than him in her stilettos, and we know Michelle is not short. He is, I have to keep remembering how tall 6'8" is. That is so tall.
6'8" is so tall. Like, I don't know that I would be able to really have a conversation with Nate because I would have to look straight up. Like, that man is a full 1.5 feet taller than me.
We should get like a life size, like true to life size cutout of him to put up on the wall so that whenever Michelle's having conversation with him, we can kind of take a moment to like position ourselves.
Simulate.
This is what it must feel like. I'm going to need that kind of aid. I think that's a good idea.
Same.
And he says, it's better Nate than never.
Michelle loves a bad pun.
Oh, yeah. Michelle loves it.
Michelle's very into it.
Romeo introduces himself in French and then translates, "My name is Romeo, and I hope you'll be my Juliet, but I assure you our love story won't end in tragedy."
I'm glad he addressed that.
Yeah, but then what is it?
Yeah.
What is your love story? We're 12 and 14 and
everything
desire to
works
be together.
out great.
Yeah.
And Michelle doesn't seem to know what to do with this either. She's sort of like, okay, thank you. That's nice. Bye.
But she thinks he's hot, which is
Yeah.
great.
She does. He gets the
Rooting for
little
him.
like thumbs up. She's into it.
I do actually have trouble during these intros reading who she's actually interested in. Because I'll be like, Michelle is not into this. And then like 3 seconds later, she'll be like, we have so much chemistry.
I know, but also those could be about anyone. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
It occurred to me that her thumbs up to Tayshia and Caitlin could
have
be
been
about
about
other people.
Yeah, maybe
These tricky producers.
can't trust anyone in this world. The crazy world of Bachelor. Jack exits in a white dinner jacket and he says, "I'm Jack Russell," like the dog. And like the dog, I'm loyal and attentive, but also playful and ready to play tug of war for your heart. I don't know what to say
Okay.
about that.
There's nothing to say.
Nothing to say. Anyway, let's talk about Clayton.
Yeah. Clayton, the world's second most interesting man.
Clayton
Who looks
exits.
just like Jesse Palmer.
He exits the limo with his arm behind his back and tells Tayshia that he, of course, used to be a student. He used to get in trouble for his behavior. And in case he gets out of line, here is a yardstick for corporal punishment.
Nothing cuter than joking about corporal punishment. I was like, I don't think Michelle beats her students, but
The funniest thing was
okay.
Tayshia and Caitlin watching from afar going, they called it a teacher stick. And then they said, he's a teacher. They can be teachers together. It's like they're playing charades. They're like,
I think we
teacher stick.
actually have a clip of how the rest
Oh,
of
good.
this unrolls.
It's a ruler. It's a teacher stick. He's a teacher stick. He's a teacher. They can be teachers together.
Now listen, I plan on being on my best behavior this entire time, so hopefully you don't have to use it. But this time only, I will allow one free swing.
You know, I don't think I ever thought I'd be spanking a grown man's butt on national television, but here I am.
Give me your best shot.
I'm gonna be nice.
That's
It's
it?
your first day of
That's
school.
it?
I'm
Okay.
gonna be nice. I
First
want
day
you to
of
come
school.
back to class, you know?
Okay.
Teacher stick.
she is a good sport. She's
Teacher
really
stick.
a good sport.
I'm sorry, all I heard was teacher stick.
teacher stick is so funny. Teacher stick is what it should be called from now on.
Yeah, and I love the idea that they're going to be teachers together. Like, what do teachers do when they date? They just do teaching stuff
They
together.
just do teaching. They teach each other. They just rotate back and forth until they've learned everything.
It's the influencer outlook where you, like, do your profession as a couple. But, like, if you're a teacher, I don't think it's quite the same as doing a couple's photo shoot for, like, a fitness brand.
They can be teachers together.
They can be
That's
teachers
so funny.
together.
I really loved that moment. Caitlin and Tayshia have very delightful chemistry.
The best. Anyway, he's very clearly the best contestant, and moving on.
He is the person who is openly like, I thought that would go really differently, but she's very calm and confident, and I thought she'd be nervous, and now I'm like freaking out. Every guy would just be reassured by a woman who's just a little bit less confident, I would say. Just a little
You
more,
mean vulnerable?
maybe maybe more vulnerable woman. He's like, I thought she would be vulnerable.
Instead, she's actively not in physical danger. Do over. Next, we meet Jamie, who Jamie like really has swag. He comes out and just exudes real confidence, a real positive energy, compliments Michelle's dress. He's like, that was just fabric until you brought it to life.
I was like, technically, that is true about all clothing, but for some reason, it feels special in this moment.
And it really worked on her, I think. She was like, wow, Jamie, yes.
Well, the
I
thing that
like
was
him.
arresting about him was that he really was the most present of all the people, even before the wellness expert. He came out and just took it all in and really was just looking at her and taking it was a remarkable amount of just poise and lack of nerves. Very impressive.
I was so impressed.
Yeah, he actually does seem very confident, and he knows he's got the lines. He knows that he can handle himself in the situation. He's bringing back the tan jacket. It looks better this time. Maybe we can embrace a tan jacket in 2021. She loves it, and I think Jamie might do well. I see them together. Then we get some quick entrances. Chris G exits with a sort of spoken word poem that I struggle to describe and couldn't bring myself to write down.
Macklemore for kids.
Oh, God.
Just so uncomfortable.
Oh, no. We sort of speed through a bunch of other entrances after this. We meet Malik. We meet Alec. They both just sort of give her little lines. Will introduces himself in Spanish. Pardeep, the neuroscientist, says his dopamine is on fire seeing her, which I enjoyed.
I enjoyed, however, I think that's the one part of neuroscience that we could all say. I was say something a deeper cut, perhaps, about it.
We've all heard of dopamine, Pardeep,
exactly.
okay?
That's what makes it relatable.
Exactly, I guess so.
Yeah.
A few of these guys looked like they were glamoring her, from True Blood, like vampires that were trying to. Chris G, the way he was looking at her, I was like, are you going to. What are you trying to just. Yeah, exactly. It was very strange. I think Rick is the number one offender of this, but just keep an eye out for the glamoring.
Yeah, there's been some weird energy from some of these guys.
Olu is like, it's NBA draft night. I hope to be your number one pick. Okay, we get it. Pithy little lines. But Michelle's like, okay, they know some things about me, like I'm beautiful and I play basketball. So
but do they know the secret thing about
truly,
me?
Truly here for me and could not be here for anyone else.
I'm still waiting for a guy who has researched me more deeply in the darker corners of the internet.
Yeah, exactly. And knows, for example, that I might like ice cream.
Yeah, who has maybe some sort of dossier tucked away. But here's a guy who really did do his homework. Maybe he does have some secret info on her. A guy who's arriving in a yellow school bus in a little schoolboy outfit with shorts and a blazer and knee socks. Does he know she's a teacher?
Guys, nothing is hotter than a little bit of infantilization of yourself when trying to date a woman who works with kids. What the fuck, Chris?
And his game immediately went back to 5th grade as well. The banter that took place after this is...
Yeah.
Oh.
So he exits in his little schoolboy outfit. She's like, poor bus safety. You can't stick your head out the window. He's like, no worries about that. Have I got an intro for you? I think we have a clip of his little intro chat.
I've never been so excited to come back to school, but you might have to take an exam of mine.
Oh, I'll be ready. I don't mind a challenge.
You might get an A, I might give you a D.
See you
Diamond!
Okay.
What are you thinking, dessert? You're thinking dessert.
Detention, actually.
Oh, you can put me in detention.
My soul is trying to crawl out of my body.
I have to give it to her, though. She was fast and way smarter and funnier than he was at his own very planned and thought out intro. See you later and detention were very funny.
Incredible. She was ready. She's definitely had to deal with kids who think they're even funnier than Chris for a long time.
She's not going to let this little man with his little shorts neg her. And I appreciate that. This is another instance where I do wonder if they clipped her reaction after the fact about someone else, because she's like, He was pleasantly smooth. Was he, Michelle? Was he?
Was she referring to his face?
I will say after this, Chris says that he wanted to do something relatable to her for his intro, and he feels like he really nailed that. And I wrote something relatable to her, like a student coming on to her, I guess. Like, what? She is a teacher. Like, she's not dating her students. There's just something like, let's not go there, you know, Chris?
I don't know how sharp Chris is.
I don't either. But I do have a feeling that he was put in this cast very, very purposefully to just be pissed. He's so ready to be angry at the other guys. It revealed itself by the end of the episode. I was like, why is this dude here? And then I was like, oh, because Aaron can't come back.
Oh, every season needs an Aaron. Garrett exits the limo and says that his family told him to break a leg, and so he did. He broke his foot.
Rough.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not the same thing.
The foot is part of the leg. It's the bottom part.
Yeah.
So
It's attached to the leg.
the foot bone's connected to the leg bone. Anyway, Casey is up next. Casey initiates a hand slap game. Casey Dilla, sorry. Casey Dilla initiates a slap game, and then he's like, it's not fair because your face is too distracting. I can't pay attention to the hand slap game. And thumbs down for that one from Allison.
Yeah, big thumbs down.
Casey.
No words, just a thumbs down.
It's going to be hard for Casey to win me back after I've sampled his musical oeuvre, but
It can't be
hard?
done.
It's gonna be hard?
It's going to be impossible. You cannot come back from that.
no version of the hand slap game is going to win me back, that's for sure. Brandon Kay offers her a huge Mardi Gras bead necklace and says, it's the finest jewelry in Louisiana. You have to earn it by showing your... And he, like, cups his hands under his chest.
Like, Brandon, no, this was... And he pauses for way too long.
He really messed up the delivery of this. Even Caitlin and Tayshia were like, ooh, that dismount did not work. He did not stick
it
that
was
landing.
like, he was like, okay, I got it. I've been rehearsing the setup to this opening line in my head, but he forgot to get to the end. And then he's like, no, your heart. And she's already, like, giving back the beads, being like, I'm not, like, are you making joke about my breasts? Like, no, thank you.
These guys, like, they have to be on it, because if they're going to make a joke and the joke is, it's going to sound like I'm saying something really inappropriate and sexual to you, but I'm actually not. She is way too fast to shut you down. Like, she is not sitting here, like, letting herself get, like, offended with your stupid jokes. She is knocking that shit
She's ahead
down
of you
immediately.
Yeah, the men are like, she's on a delay, right?
I think of women as being about 30% slower than men mentally,
Of course,
so this case should be fine. Next is LT, the yoga guru, who exits in a tux jacket and shirt and a tiny Speedo with a tux printed on that. And Michelle shouts, best tux I've seen all night.
Clint Eastwood must be so proud of his grandson.
Oh my gosh, that's right. I forgot. Well, I love Tayshia going, that man forgot his pants, Caitlin. That made me laugh so hard.
If you're the Bachelorette, you can't be like, you forgot your pants. You have to be like, oh, great tux. Like, be so supportive. That's why I would never be a good Bachelorette. I would just be like, why are you doing
Put
this?
some clothes on, sir.
Do I not deserve the respect of a pair of pants, sir? Next, I think we've all been waiting for this moment because we are talking about Rick. A table with a covered dish is wheeled over to Michelle. She very reluctantly opens the dish. She's like, this is out of a horror movie. I don't want to pick up the lid. She knows what's going to be inside. It's going to be a head. And it is. It's Rick's head poking out of a bed of lettuce. And I think we have a little clip of what he says.
My name is Rick. I want to tell you about the special tonight. The special comes from Los Angeles, California. Perfectly aged at 32 years. Sweet with a little bit of spice. Now, I want you to enjoy your appetizers tonight, but when you're ready for your main course, come and find me.
Yes. I don't know what else to say.
We'll save it for later.
I'll. Okay.
Thank you. I'll say
What?
Yeah.
Okay. It's nice to meet you, Rick.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Duck.
Oh my God.
I have so many questions, but first of all, like, what was the breathing situation with your
What
entire
was the
head
everything situation?
encased in steel?
Like, what?
Yeah, also, like, who came up with this bit?
How
Why
was
did he agree to it?
Positioned under the table.
I really would like, some sort of, like, design sketch for this entire contraption. Like, where was his body
It looks
really
like his
positioned?
body would have to be in what is technically called a stress position. And those are used, intentionally to make people very uncomfortable. Like the way he would have to accordion his knees and legs up. I just don't see it being healthy for the body.
But
to
here's
do
the
that.
thing. Like, if he had had a different personality, this would have been so funny because it was, like, genuinely uncanny. The ITM of
Yes.
him talking. And then, like, later when he's inside and he's having a full, like, very serious conversation with one of the guys from his tabletop was very funny. There's just something so murdery about this
That's
man
so-
and his energy.
It's
Okay,
It's like
there's something about his wide eyes paired with his very,
very fast
intense
shadow.
Yes, and like very intense eyelashes.
And I'm gonna say
It's just
he changes facial expressions very rapidly.
Yes. It's just like he's choosing from a catalog that he has. He's like flipping through expressions mentally.
It's like he just suddenly has a really wide smile. And I'm like, how did that happen? Oh my God. I was watching the whole time and there was just a smile out of nowhere. Like it's very rapid fire. That struck me.
I'm surprised this ends up working as well as it did.
There's
Me
something
too.
about the setup that is very murdery. Like, there's nothing romantic about it. It's like, I'm serving you your lover's head on a bed of lettuce at a banquet, and you can't say anything because I'm your husband. Like, that's the kind of vibe
It's
you
really
get from a head
weird.
on a plate in a covered dish.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Are we all just confused because it has nothing to do with school or basketball?
Yeah.
Is it that we're just too simple-minded to make this leap? It was
I don't
not
know.
grounded in anything.
They keep
at
trying
all.
to throw a new thing in. They're like, she's also a foodie. And I'm like, you've invested so much time in telling me that she's a teacher who loves basketball. And now I'm
You're
supposed
telling me
to,
there's 3 things about her that I need to know?
she has 3 traits? Like, I simply can't process.
But also, he's a medical sales rep. Like, it has nothing to do with that either. Like,
It made no sense. This just seemed to be like the food portion of limo exits. Like, first we got Rick. Then we get Ryan in the ice cream truck.
Yep.
Soon after we get the pizza guy. Like they're very much like
there's
she likes food.
A whole thing of food. So the ice cream truck rolls up with Ryan. Did someone named Michelle order a double scoop of love? She's like, this man knows what he's doing. Someone did his homework. Perhaps he's been on the dark web looking up what I like to eat. Ice cream? How could anyone know that?
Who likes ice cream? I thought I was the only person I knew who liked ice cream.
Well, there's someone out there who might have your interest in ice cream written down in a spiral-bound notebook because that's how much they want to get to know you.
Something to look forward to, really.
Rodney comes out in a red apple costume, and she asks what
the
kind of
funniest
apple
part of the night.
he is. I hope we all had the same immediate reaction
my God.
to this. She says, what kind of apple are you? And he says, obviously Granny Smith.
Like Rodney.
What are the odds? Genuinely, what are the odds that he would pick? I love when she pointed this out later.
I know.
She's like, do you know that there's one green apple?
That would literally be sitting with me if I had witnessed that as well. I'm like, Rodney, just go with the red delicious. Like I'm so confused. Also, I love a Granny Smith apple, but I don't believe this man has ever eaten a Granny Smith apple because they're very obviously green.
Yeah. Next, Peter. I don't know how to process what's happening with Peter. Peter opens sort of by like howling at the moon. Buongiorno, principessa. And then hurls a raw round of pizza dough into the air and lets it just splatter all over the pavement. He's wearing a sparkly jacket.
Aren't you supposed to like catch the dough if you do that professionally?
Also, Buongiorno Principessa harkens back to a pretty tragic film.
Like that was the old. I was like, is this that Holocaust movie?
Yes,
Like, what are
I
we?
think so.
It's a Beautiful Life.
Yeah.
Yes,
Life
it's a
is
beautiful life.
It's a Beautiful Life.
It would be like if someone came flying out of the limo making a Schindler's List joke. It's like, this is just a weird vibe to bring to this kind of event.
And just so much like raw energy coming out of him the whole time. Like he's just like the DJ hyping up like a
So
bar
weird.
mitzvah, and he's just like going a little too hard, and you're like,
was really
it's
stressful.
3 p.m.
Yeah, I just kept thinking, though, about what you guys said, that he is genuinely, by all the reviews, a good pizza maker. And so how much cooler he could have been if he was just like super humble about it and gave her a slice of unbelievably delicious pizza and then just like sauntered into the house.
Yeah, and instead
Right?
he left raw pizza dough all over the pavement and shouted a line from a Holocaust movie at her. What a choice. But
he's very confident.
Yeah.
He's like, we're vibing. I'm in a Ferrari. My foot's on the gas. All the guys are trying to catch up with me.
whenever a guy compares himself or what's going on in his
To a
life to a Ferrari,
And it's a frequent occurrence on this show.
frequent. Yeah, it's like a type of guy who sees himself as like he's a luxury item or his life is based around luxury. Next up is a very different kind of vehicle, a tiny, tiny fire truck with a
I really loved this.
with a man on top, wearing a tiny toy fire helmet with a little siren on it, and he has to kind of like
Roll
himself up on this children's toy. He says to Michelle, "I heard there's a fire, but apparently it's just a smoke show."
No, listen, I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was pretty funny.
It's
I
contextualized.
thought it worked. Yeah,
Yes.
I thought it worked within this context. Like it was good.
Unfortunately for Daniel, next up is a real fire truck.
That's rough. That's just very rough. And you see Daniel get the full on goofy court jester background music during his entrance, and then it's like the big hot man has arrived, and he's just like helplessly watching from inside, being like, "Oh no,
I
I've
think
been made
someone
a
is
fool."
like, someone's like, "Is that how you came in?" Thinking that's why he's upset. And he goes,
Yeah.
"No, I came in on a toy."
Yeah, they're like, "Wait,
then they
what?"
all
And all the
laugh at
other
him.
men starts laughing. Oh my god,
It's so mean.
rough.
There's nothing wrong with a toy fire truck, Daniel. It doesn't emasculate you. PJ is the other firefighter. He exits also in a suit. So he's got like a bigger fire truck and a fancier outfit. They really worked this on the production side to make a clear contrast. And Michelle says, there's another firefighter inside. He also came in a fire truck. And PJ's sort of disappointed. She's like, you can compare. She's like encouraging a firefighter
I
rivalry
love
from
that.
jump. Next,
A
bed is wheeled up to Michelle containing the winsome form of Brandon J, reclining at his ease and inviting her into the bed with him. What did you guys think of this little move?
I'm weirded out. He's another glamoring person in my mind. I feel like that's a word that's going to keep coming up.
He just looks very young.
How young is he?
I don't know. I don't
Is
get
he-
it.
I think he's 26.
So 2 whole years younger than.
Yeah, only 2 years younger than her. But again, like I'm bringing my own old person
Right.
biases.
Everyone
into
should be old
this.
enough for us in our mid-30s to date.
Exactly.
It's only right.
exactly.
only
It's the
right.
polite thing to do.
Will no one think about our feelings? Brandon says that he wanted to give her a preview of waking up next to him every morning for the rest of her life. And she says, well, you'd be waking up to this every morning. And she gestures at her like perfectly made up face and hair. And I thought she was making a joke that's like, obviously I won't always look like this in the morning. And he says, I'd be all right with that.
That really killed me because it was fully the joke she was making.
Yeah,
And he's
I
like-
will not be picking up on that. But yeah, you're fine.
This would
Like,
work. If it's
sure.
episode 1 of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I'm into it. You should be fully made up by the time I wake up.
Yeah, I mean, the labor of a woman, right? I too get fully glammed up before my husband sees me every day. Just to
You're
be
just
safe.
awoken by the sun as it cracks into your window, but Greg is still just slumbering beautifully,
Of course.
and you take out your rollers and
Because as I know, a man will accept you only at your most beautiful, and anything less than that cannot be witnessed. I just loved the lack of self-awareness that he had in that moment. Next, we get just some very quick entrances. Spencer dribbling 2 basketballs, Brian, Jamari in a suit with tearaway arms. Edward has his singing bowl and has her do some deep breathing. He's a wellness coach.
God.
Leroy does a Polaroid selfie with her. Martin, the blonde, tipped dude.
Blonde tip guy.
The way it shows up in my notes is blonde top of hair.
It really is more than the tips, right? It's just the top.
Yeah. There's two blonde tops of hairs in this season.
Oh my God, wait, who's the other one?
Malik.
Yeah. Malik and Martin.
There are too many for me to keep up with still at this stage. Yeah, it's the just the top blonde, and he tries a backflip and then says, "I'm already flipping crazy about you." So just some quick entrances for these guys, and then Joe comes out, gives her a hug, and she says, "You look really familiar."
He just blows right past this initial comment. He's just like, yeah, see, I had a line about how I'm from Minnesota. So all these other guys you'd have to convince to move to Minnesota, but I'm already here and I can't wait to go home together. I just love how he refused to acknowledge that she had clearly recognized him.
Yeah, talk about being present in the moment. He is the opposite. He's running a track of reality. That's how he thought this would go. And Michelle is standing there while he talks to her, being you look really familiar. Do we know each other?
Why do I know you? Have we met?
And then as he's walking away, he's oh, I don't know. We'll see. Some bullshit. Walks away. And she goes, "Have I slid into your DMs? Is your last name Coleman?"
I love this. I love that she just said it.
I loved that.
Incredible.
I know. It made me so happy. And I was it made me imagine a time when Michelle would have to do the sliding into the proverbial DMs of someone else.
I know.
And I was those days are over for you, honey.
Yeah, she's done.
You're done.
Yeah, I hope
But
so.
I love that she had that
Well, no, I
moment.
just mean people will be sliding into hers from now on, I think.
Yeah, she'll never have to initiate again.
Yeah, well, you never have to, but then do you trust the guys who are sliding into your DMs?
Well, if they continue to message you, not if they stop.
That's a good start.
Not if they ghost you.
Yeah.
The thing that bugged me about this is he clearly turned around and came back to talk to her for a little while, and they cut that. We don't get to see it. And that bothered me because the next thing we see is Tasha and Caitlin coming over.
Yeah, it was a little weird. He turns around and is yeah. And then the next thing is Tasha and Caitlin.
We're left to assume he just ran away immediately into the house and was okay, we've addressed that. Goodbye.
He was oops, I've been caught, and sprints away.
So weird.
Tasha and Caitlin, though, come up and they're what? What did we hear about the DMs? Tell us everything. And Michelle's yeah, so we DM'd briefly about basketball, and then he ghosted me.
So strange.
So weird.
I mean, in one way, I was this is the smartest strategy that anyone ever deploys on this show because he's already negged her. And so in a world where no, for real, it reminded me of Courtney and Ben in Ben's season when she just wasn't sure she was into him all season and it made Ben crazy. It just strategically, it's so smart because she's starting on the back foot and all these other guys are just throwing themselves at her. And instead she's well, you've already proven to lose interest in me. That should make me think. That should make me think, why bother doing it again? Which is what we thought she was going to do all episode. But instead it makes me want to win you back so that it's my decision whether or not. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Oof.
They ask if she's happy to see him, and I thought she was going to say no because she seemed really put off. But then she says, yeah, kind of. And he's good looking. So
yeah,
he
obviously
is.
she was into him at some point before.
Yeah. It's weird because I can understand DMing with
I can
someone briefly
understand
and
having-
then not responding anymore. Like, it doesn't seem
Yeah.
like such a big deal to me. It does seem a little odd to then see that that person is going to be the Bachelorette and to be like, I need to really go after this person now and like really make sure to date them. It's just
without reaching out to her, just in a simpler way.
yeah. So Joe is the last guy. All the guys are now awaiting her inside a space that I think of as sort of like industrial multi-level parking lot meets sort of wood-paneled conference room, but glamorous. And she heads on in to walk down the long, long staircase in her stilettos as the men applaud. I would have been like, can you all chill out and like stop applauding? And in fact, stop looking at me because I need to focus on making it down these stairs in one piece. But Michelle's a pro. She makes it down. Rick's head is still on a plate. And with that, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back to talk about the cocktail party.
Can you keep up? I like love it.
And we're back. Just in time for us to discuss Michelle giving her first toast as the Bachelorette. It's nice, a very standard toast about being authentic, vulnerable.
Did you guys notice how loud the ice was clinking in her glass during the toast?
Yes.
It was like the only thing I could hear.
Second Bachelorette season in a row where the sound department was like, we're going to mic the glass instead of the dress.
Like, what?
It's so bizarre. Like half the time you feel like you're not getting good audio from the actual people, but like couldn't you take that background noise out in post? I don't understand.
No. But ask her to do it again or have her hold the glass lower. It's so confusing.
Or be like, here's a glass of champagne for your toast. We'll get you your cocktail
with no
later.
ice.
Yeah, with no ice. It's always like some sort of like mixed drink with a bunch of ice in it that she's like holding like right here.
Also, get a cocktail shaker so that it's cold. The cocktail can be cold without ice.
We've got a lot of strategies.
Whatever.
ABC.
I have thoughts.
Hire us.
Jamie has finally arisen. He's finally gotten to his feet so that he can steal some time with her immediately. And they have a nice conversation. He says, like, I've heard from so many people that they just adore you. And I was like, who? Like, mutual friends? Like, producers?
I had the same question.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. I'm like, does he just mean like on social media she seems popular?
Or in the last couple hours, like he's flop sweating though at this point. So I was like, maybe that came out weird and he knows it. And that made him really nervous.
But they seem to have a nice time. And then Peter has taken another crack at being the foodie guy. He has set up some cannolis and red wine for her, and he feeds her her first cannoli.
Before telling her what it is. And then he just says, he's like, it's good or something.
good.
And I was like, what if she has a dairy allergy or gluten? Like,
I would have hoped the producers would have stepped in before that happened.
She's like, what is it? No, seriously, what is it? As
never
his
know.
hand just like shoves.
He's like, you
She's
will
like-
eat it, ma'am. Put it in your
The
mouth.
thing about a cannoli is I don't know how to eat one in an elegant way because it
But
just...
he gave her a napkin. And I was like, this is rare on this show.
That's
There's
something.
a cleanup implement. And I was very impressed.
a good moment for Peter. Joe, meanwhile, is feeling great. He's like, Michelle recognized me. Like, sky's the limit for us. Michelle, meanwhile, has decided she needs time with him ASAP. So she comes and gets him. And it's not going to be an easy conversation because while he is feeling very good that Michelle remembered him, Michelle is not feeling great about how she remembered him because what she remembers, as she tells him, is that he responded to her DMs for a while and then he stopped responding without explanation.
We call this ghosting.
Some people call it ghosting. I think that might be a strong term for a relationship that has been exclusively over DM, but sure, like it's not polite.
That was the feelings she received.
It was
seemingly.
It understandably left a very bad taste in her mouth, especially now that he is popping up wanting to date her on television.
On TV.
But so what Joe says in response is that the reason that he stopped responding is that there was a lot going on with him, specifically, he also is from Minnesota, and he actually had one of his real estate properties. It's on George Floyd Square. And, he said there was just a lot of unrest and shootings happening, a lot of chaos. He didn't know how to deal with it or express that to her. It must have been incredibly traumatic. I mean, this was just last summer for him. I mean, being a Black man, but also being right there in the midst of all of it and having kind of work that brought him right to that area every day. It sounds like a lot. He says he didn't know how to deal with it or how to express it to her. He didn't really feel like he could get into a relationship with all this going on. And he's like, I wish I had handled it better, but that's what happened.
And that seems honestly pretty reasonable. And I think Michelle feels torn at this because she obviously relates to what he's saying. She says very clearly that, she would have completely understood, especially because she is also a Black woman, a person of color who was living in the midst of all of this happening in close physical proximity to it. And she makes it really clear that what bothers her is not that he wasn't ready for a relationship or wanted to stop chatting, but that he just stopped communicating. And she's worried that in this setting, maybe he'll just kind of emotionally shut down again. And this is when he says that he recognizes that he sort of was lacking communication skills. And that's something that he has spent presumably the last year working on, and that he has been in therapy, and that he came on the show because he really is interested in her. And Michelle, again, makes it clear that she really appreciates him being open with her. She specifically calls out the fact that it really means a lot that he is a Black man speaking really openly about going to therapy. But she's also, again, nervous about protecting her own heart.
Yeah, there's clearly this push and pull here of obviously everything he's saying, she feels the validity of, and she feels like the pain that may be behind it, that must be behind it, that she is familiar with herself, but that, she can't just say, well, then forget all of my concerns, because there was time in between, when things were, initially kind of happening and you were really overwhelmed by all of that. And now a year later, you being here, time has elapsed. You didn't communicate with me. You didn't tell me, hey, I need to take a break from all of this because I'm dealing with so much. And so how invested were you in getting to know me if that wasn't a choice that you could make, or if I couldn't be that priority, if you couldn't come back to me before we appear on this show together at some point during the last year and let me know what happened. That's got to be tough. You're I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and accept his explanation because there's so much truth there. But then at the same time, am I not taking care of myself to not notice, all the ways in which he could have handled it better if he were really invested in possibly having a relationship with me.
Yeah, it's undergirding this entire conversation, which they don't explicitly say, is well, now the setting is national television. And so what does it mean that that's when you chose to show up?
Right. She says it later when she's trying to decide whether to give him a rose. She's like, is it just that now I'm the Bachelorette? Is that what really changed? And that's always going to be the question when someone that from your past pursues you on The Bachelorette.
It is true. But I'm glad, and I understand why she ultimately chose to keep him around, which we'll dig into later.
Meanwhile,
Rick is back.
Oh, Rick is back. Rick has decided that he cannot simply sit in the table all night and wait for Michelle to come for her entree. So he has a couple of the guys wheel him in to interrupt Spencer and have that one-on-one time with her. Which basically begins with her just sitting on a couch across the room from him inside the table and talking to his head.
So awkward.
And I think he stays in just long enough to convince her to feed him a strawberry because he doesn't have access to his hands. And then he's like, all right, I'm coming out. Michelle, to me, has not seemed into this gambit or, like, amused by Rick. But after he comes out of the table and they chat for a little bit, he, you know, is like, I just want to laugh through this journey with you. I want to be there for you if you're having a rough time, someone you can turn to. And she's like, you know, Rick is so charming. We have so much chemistry.
He is glamoring her. He is a vampire glamoring her. I'm obsessed with this.
This show is just like F-Boy Island, but with vampires.
For vampires.
It's so
honestly.
intense. Honestly, if I was like, guys, you can't tell anyone, I have it on good authority that Rick is a vampire, you'd be like, I believe you.
I can very much see it. But look, Rick wins her over via glamoring or just her, you know, disarming her by showing his full human body. We may never know. Then she sits with Rodney and she thankfully points out, Rodney, a Granny Smith apple is green.
I loved her for that. I was swooning. Meanwhile, it's time for Ryan to take his turn to maybe sweep Michelle off her feet spontaneously, or perhaps not spontaneously in some way. And I think we have a short clip of this.
So my big plan, it's not planned spontaneous, but it's definitely spontaneously planned. You know, I think I'm gonna have a hankering for some ice cream, so therefore, you know, hey, boom, boom, boom. Oh, Michelle, let me steal you for a second. Finally.
So you didn't tell me your favorite ice cream flavor.
And you might never know. That's something that's like a secret. You have to get to different layers before you figure that out.
Oh my
So
goodness.
maybe I'll find yours right now if we have it.
Okay.
They're very tropical.
Can I have a taste test?
You can have a taste test. Let's
Okay.
see.
This man already gets brownie points.
This is phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
I feel like ice cream is kind of like the way to my heart a little bit.
Okay, first, I really need to point something out. This is not an ice cream truck. It is a water ice truck. I looked up the company, and it's called Happy Ice. Again, not ice cream. Very much says on their website, we are water ice, inspired by Philadelphia.
Wait, water ice. What?
Water ice, like a shaved
Like an
shaved
Italian
ice
ice?
dessert. Yeah, like Italian ice. In
Is it
Philly,
really
they call
called
it water
ice? That's
in
so
Philly, they call
funny.
it water ice. I also grew up calling it Italian ice, but in Philly, they call it water ice. And that is the inspiration for this truck. And it's like, yeah, who would be eating sour apple ice cream? Like, that's not an ice cream flavor. I don't know. I was just incensed that both of them were referring to this as ice cream the entire night. And like, it is in no way ice cream. That's just an aside.
All the other ice cream trucks, all the actual ice cream trucks were very busy that weekend. And
I guess so.
You just, you know, there are a lot of weddings.
All they could get was like some Italian ice and sorbet.
Well, maybe Big Water Ice paid to have this product placement in the show to blur
Yeah.
the lines between the genres.
But he tells her about his raisin farm and his Special Olympics coaching, and she is into it. She feels a spark. And this is the moment, of course, that Tayshia and Caitlin have finally decided how to handle the information that they found. Now that Michelle is like digging this guy, they're like, all right,
We gotta
know
tell
what we
her.
have to do.
Drop the hammer now.
So they approach Michelle and tell her that while meeting the guys, they found a document with stuff about how to act around her, not be a villain. He apparently wrote that she was a teacher, so, quote, make it seem like you're super interested in that stuff. That stuff.
That stuff.
And she asks who it was, and Caitlin says Ryan. So Michelle has to go and just whisk Ryan away, looking very serious. And she tells him what Caitlin and Tayshia told her, and she says she wants an explanation. And Ryan's explanation, which, to be fair, I'm sure he wasn't prepared to explain this, because you would never anticipate being found out as having a plan is never part of the plan. And so he says, well, I just needed to, I've only seen 2 hours of The Bachelor ever. I don't know anything about it. So I had to like prepare myself. And so my friend's wife made notes about it for me, who watches the show, and I made notes because I looked up stuff about what you liked, like ice cream. Remember how I got you ice cream and you like
Michelle's
ice cream?
like, I'm not concerned about your ice cream notes. It's more like the other things that I've heard about. And she's like, okay, basically cut the bullshit. Like, are the notes in your room? I just need to see them. And he's like, yeah, of course. Let's have an open and honest conversation. And so they go to the room.
And then he commits the biggest sin he commits in the whole episode, which is putting his dirty suitcase on his bed.
On the bed. Yeah.
Listen, in fairness to him, sure, he's very overwhelmed. You know, probably normally he's great with suitcase hygiene. But he just hurls that suitcase right on the coverlet.
And he's like, here is my dossier. I think she was just probably floored by like the sheer volume of pages. Because there was a lot to process there.
That's like a full semester's worth of AP Bio handouts right there.
It really reminded me of like during college when I was studying for finals, I used to like try to condense all of my notes from the semester into like one new note stock because it helped me like remember everything. And I was like, it looked like that, like just many, many pages of just random information.
He's cramming.
He's cramming. He really was. He's cramming for the test. And the test is, are you there for the right reasons? And he fails.
Well, but the question is like, how many, to your point earlier, like how many people do this?
Yeah.
I think that it's probably not uncommon for people to, you know, do some research, read stuff, take some notes, get emails from their girlfriends who watch the show and know things about it. But I think it is probably unusual to create like a cataloged folder that is clearly marked, and then you bring all of those notes with you, and they say things like pretend to like
that kind of
stuff about teaching, and also list all of your worst qualities.
Okay, yeah, we got a clip, I think, actually. Michelle reads a few telling snippets aloud.
When watching The Bachelor, it is hard not to notice that these quotes are said at least every season, or every episode for that matter, in honor of the girls that are left to win over Ben Higgins' hearts. Here are a few phrases that have been repeated over the years.
Everything is true. I'm not trying to do anything for the right reasons. I'm here for the right reasons. I just never have seen the show enough that I've just written it down. There's advice from my couple girlfriends, but that's about it.
Ryan. Biggest fault is that you are overconfident, arrogant. It's a massive turnoff to people. Come off as mean and demanding. Better to just keep those thoughts to yourself and express a positive outlook to others.
Yeah, it's unusual. Like, most people don't bring notes from a friend telling them how they come off as mean and they should pretend not to be mean. I was a little bit thrown by the list of guys to act like you should try to be like Jason Tardik on the show. And
that is such a funny thing to picture, is him doing a Jason Tardik impression.
I mean,
mixed with Blake Horseman.
If I'm Michelle, I don't want to think that I'm marrying, Jason Tardik mixed with Blake Horseman, and then it's someone else completely. I mean, Allison, you are kind of gesturing at this, and I think that it's true. I don't think that this is maybe that uncommon or unheard of for people who are maybe on the spectrum and who do struggle more with like having the kind of social interactions that are expected by neurotypical people. And that the idea that you like make lists of how to respond to certain situations that will seem, appropriate to other people present. That is something I know happens. And
and you wouldn't know how you come off necessarily because that's not a muscle you have developed. So you need a friend to be like, you seemed arrogant and like an asshole. So ease off on the cockiness.
Honestly, if that is the case here, then I think it's like pretty fucked up of the show to make a whole plot line of it. And I really, really, really hope that he's just like not someone who is on the spectrum and trying to conform to, a culture that is really unforgiving.
I can understand why Michelle would be really put up, because when you're dating, I do think it would be uncomfortable to be like, the person that I'm dating is actually like, this isn't how they are naturally. They're trying to put on a front. No one wants to feel that way when they're dating. But to like go through someone's private belongings and find something that maybe was just kind of like a coping mechanism for them because the world is not like designed for them, that feels very uncomfortable. So
I don't know. I feel very torn about this. I think that...
Ditto.
Yeah.
I need more information.
Yeah.
I need more information. I also think that if you're Michelle, you sort of like don't have another option but to send him home because it colors everything very oddly.
Yeah.
And what was frankly the most disturbing part about it is that she's like, look, I can't start a relationship this way with red flags. And he asks for a chance to change her mind twice. Like, okay, you ask that once. And she's like, no, you need to respect my boundary. You need to respect my decision. And then he does it again.
Yeah.
And that like
not great.
Felt really icky.
Not cool.
Yeah, because that also like triggers the other bell that you're thinking of, which is like,
Exactly.
is he planning so much because he's really determined to make it far on this TV show?
Right.
And he doesn't. But, you know, we don't know. All we know is if a woman says, please respect my boundary, I'm breaking up with you, you really should just respect it. And so we say goodbye to Ryan very quickly, and Michelle recommences the cocktail party and gets some time with Nate. He says,
I loved this.
This is sweet.
So much.
Michelle is so like great at getting the guys to open up, and oftentimes they're trying to like get to know her, and she'll be like, but you though, like, let's talk about you.
She's like, I'm here to learn deep things about you. Please deliver.
Yeah.
She's like, I now know you all have dossiers about me. So
Exactly.
I have to know about you.
I need to catch up here.
Yeah, and he feels that he has some walls up, but Michelle is very good about very quickly prodding him to tell her about his own, like, he's like, your parents' relationship, it was so amazing the way that you talked about that, and how much you look up to their relationship. And she's like, well, what about you? Like, what about your parents? Oh, that you don't have that? Like, tell me more. And suddenly he's telling her about his parents' divorce and how his mom is now getting divorced from his stepdad, who he's very close to. He says he's never seen his parents kiss. And so he really kind of like suddenly is divulging a lot to her. And she's really like touched by this, and they have a beautiful moment.
I feel like this is the connection that we see that's like maybe the most promising that we see on night one. And it makes so much sense why ultimately he got that first impression rose.
Yeah, first out of the limo, first impression rose. You know?
Yeah, like this guy is top four. Like,
I mean, when
100%.
you're that, I have to say, when you're that tall, I think you have a leg up in getting the first impression rose because you're hard to miss. You definitely make an impression. But then he just like, he's also really cute.
He's emoting, and he's cute, and he's tall, and he seems really into Michelle. Like, this is a good combination.
Yeah. He really brings it all to the table this first night. And so she gives him that first impression rose, and she makes a little pun. Let's listen.
I wanted to start by telling you how when we were talking earlier tonight, you kind of expressed that it was difficult for you to be vulnerable and that it might have to be something that you ease into. But I truly saw you push yourself, and even as you opened up, you were completely Nate.
Yeah.
Nothing but Nate. So,
Oh, yeah.
that being said, Nate, will you accept this rose?
Most definitely. Most definitely.
So cute.
And then they have a really good kiss.
She says sparks and butterflies.
Not just one.
That's so much sensation. This is a really strong start for Nate. And I love that she can make the little net pun with his name, which also bodes well. And now it is obviously mid-morning, and so it's time for the rose ceremony to bring the night to an end.
First we see them walk down the stairs together, and they're honestly like stunning as a combo.
Oh,
like the two of them walking next to each other, I just was like,
iconic.
The rest of the guys
really
must be
works.
looking at that going like, oh.
They're
I'm
both
just
so
gonna go.
hot and
I
so
know.
tall. I mean, this is a promising couple.
Yeah. So they all assemble, and let's just rattle off these roses. Jamie, Leroy, Martin, Spencer, Rick, Clayton, Peter, PJ, Malik, Romeo, Daniel, Brandon J, Will, Chris S, Rodney, Alec, Pardeep, Christopher G, Chris G, Casey, Olumide, and LT. And now the final rose, she's so conflicted. Does she give Joe another chance? That she has to take a break before she returns.
So rough. I'm like, these guys are so tired. And then she's just like, we're not done here. I need a minute.
And she gives her final rose to Joe, which means going home are Garrett, Jamari, Edward, Brandon K, Brian, and Jack Russell.
The terrier thing did not work for him.
It didn't go over. It's unfortunate for him.
But look, guys, we're off to the races. We're into that game for Michelle's heart.
Yeah.
Yes, she's going to win.
This whole thing has just been like the part at the beginning of the basketball game where the players form a tunnel and they're like lights, and the announcer announces the starting lineup and they run out onto the court and they all do high fives.
And now we're ready. Now we're ready to play.
Now we're really playing.
And we see a little preview. And there's a lot going on in this preview. We see Vikings. We see science class. We see boats. We see some clear homages to Top Gun.
We see musical chairs.
Basketball, of course. I wrote down some of the characters that we really see a lot of in this preview. We see Jamie, Nate, Olu, Rick, Joe, Rodney, Clayton, and Brandon. And then we see Peter and Will really getting into a fight over
Will's tweets.
I hope so.
Yeah. That would be incredible. I would love that. Spencer's like, I will not stand for misogyny. I mean, sorry, not Spencer. Peter. Peter was like, I will not stand
I was like,
for
am I
misogyny
going to
in
love
this
Peter
house.
at some point in this season?
Peter's like, we got to talk about these problematic tweets, buddy, or your jacket is taking a long bath.
And it does. It takes a bath.
It takes a bath. So many tears. I'm excited. I'm excited to see more of some of these guys on my screen. And unfortunately, it seems like also Will and Peter, who I'm not super excited to see more of.
Yeah.
But the rest of them seem much better. Allison, do you have any final predictions or thoughts?
I mean, I'm going to go based on statistics. I think Nate. I'm just going to go Nate. And I honestly, after night one, I'd be fine. I'd be like, this makes sense. This checks out. I'm into it. Let's go. But I think it's going to be a pretty conflict light season. I think they injected personalities like Peter, like Chris, to try to like have that kind of ready to be aggravated energy. But I think because the dating pool is slightly older, there's just less of that rampant bar fight energy happening, which is such a relief. Like that's going to be just so much more interesting to watch. And ultimately
really
harder
nice
for Michelle, I think.
Yeah, if they just moved through that, you know, by episode 3, and we could really just like lean into the love stories, because I want to see Michelle go on some steamy dates and make out with a bunch of hot guys. A lot of these men are very attractive and seem very into her, and I just love that for her. I think she's a great lead, and it feels like the show is really behind her. Like the edit, the music,
the money,
the vibe, the money that they have clearly put into the season. And that is something that is really nice to see. So here's hoping that energy continues.
I had one question for both of you. Do you think Here for the Right Reasons has to be adjusted for these more recent seasons? The idea that anyone goes on these shows literally only as a dating... Like, is anyone in that? Of course, it's never been true, but it's never been less true
than now.
And the show has started breaking the fourth wall about it. And so I'm wondering, like, as she's being nervous about Here for the Right Reasons, et cetera, are there new elements to what that encompasses that makes room for a Thomas who's like, yeah, is it possible that if I lose, I could be the Bachelor? Yes, that's how they're selected 99% of the time. Like,
I feel like the show is always trying to construct sort of malleable rules around that, and they're like always moving the goalposts a little. And so much of it is ultimately about how conspicuous are you? Like, can you conceal the fact that you've thought about these things in a way that doesn't disrupt the world of the show and the narrative of the show? And if you do anything that sort of interrupts that flow, then you're there for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, it's like more important than ever that they guard the boundaries of right reasons, because it's constantly threatening to like ruin the show now. Like, it used to be kind of assumed that they were mostly there for the right reasons, and now every guy is potentially trying to just become a more lucrative like influencer. So I think that they've been devoting more and more like attention to it actually on the show, trying to like keep a lid on it.
But that's what's so interesting to me. I think that's the weirdest approach, because if I were Michelle, I would go into it assuming that each of them just wants a bigger following and to become more famous. And I would go in with that assumption and then be like, given that, and given that perhaps we have that in common.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there love to be found here versus these patrol people who emerge each season to seek out the people who are trying to stay? It's just it's getting so confusing. It's getting really hard to follow what the ethics are for the Bachelor.
Because there are no actual ethics, and it's all bullshit.
And the fact that it's like about the fact that it's about one person too, like more so than Paradise.
Exactly.
Is so much of it. It's like, what is she comfortable with? You know?
Yeah.
Like, and as long as you have a lead who is uncomfortable with a guy who came on hoping to maybe become the Bachelor or get more sponsorships, then like you're not going to see her wanting to keep those guys on, right? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's what changed when they started allowing the contestants to know whose season they were applying for. Like back in the day, they'd be like, oh, you're not my type. I didn't know it was going to be you. I'm not at all interested in you. And now at least they can all say, I knew it was you and I applied. So that's helpful at least. Anyway, I was just curious how you felt.
Yeah, no, it's...
Yeah, like I think that's something we're going to be talking about for a long time, and that the show is going to be negotiating in new ways kind of every season moving forward.
When New York has broken
away.
off and drifted into the sea, the Bachelor will still be trying to negotiate the boundaries of what being here for the right reasons means.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got a long future ahead of it, I think. Allison, thank you so much for joining us. It was so great to talk Bachelorette with you again.
Thank you for having me. It is always a pleasure, and I will see you out there. And I love the new milieu we find you in, and all of your wonderful articles and podcast episodes and everything.
Oh, you're
very
so
here
sweet.
for it.
And we hope that you will come back soon, because we love having you on.
Thank you.
And now it's time for Love to See It, Hate to See It. First, Love to See It.
We love to see some of these guys being so visibly and adorably nervous about meeting Michelle, Nate, Clayton. They're just so excited to be in her presence. We don't blame them. I just love this moment when we see guys just melting over the Bachelorette for the first time.
We also love that Joe spoke so openly about going to therapy. We always think it's really awesome when we see people just, talk really openly and without shame about getting treatment for their mental health. We think that it's something that everyone should be open to doing, and we love therapy ourselves. Obviously, we don't love that Joe had to go through trauma, but the therapy part, we love to see it.
Definitely love therapy. Hate to see it. Water ice being passed off as ice cream? Come on. I don't like to see that.
It's a travesty to ice cream. It's a travesty.
If I walk up to an ice cream stand expecting chocolate and vanilla, I'm going to be very confused to find sour apple water ice. Not my jam at all. Michelle handled it so well. I really respect that.
Too kind, honestly. We also hate to see Joe entering, seemingly hoping that Michelle just wouldn't recognize him, and then just blowing past her question of, why do you look familiar to me? Like, Joe, I guess I respect the gumption that takes, but sir, come on.
Yeah, that's a move.
We also really hate to see Ryan disrespecting Michelle's boundaries and trying to push her again, even after she has explicitly stated that she would like him to respect her decision. Hate to see it.
This is normally where we would announce what we have rated this episode according to our season-specific scale, but we haven't settled on a rating system for this season, and we'd love to hear if any of you have any ideas for how you would like to see Michelle's season episodes rated. We know you guys could come up with something really fun. We're working on it as well. Send us your thoughts.
Shoot your shot. And that's it for this episode of Love to See It with Emma and Claire. Thanks to our wonderful guest, Allison Williams.
Love to See It is produced by us, Claire Fallon and Emma Gray, and Stitcher. This episode was edited by Tamika Weatherspoon. Our theme music is by Tamar Habib, and our art is by Celine Chang. Josephine Martirana is our executive producer.
If you like the show, please rate us 5 stars and leave a review. And of course, help spread the word about our show, especially to your friends who used to listen to us as Here to Make Friends.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at claireandemmapod@gmail.com with your questions, voice memos, rating ideas for this season, and we might even feature you in an upcoming mailbag.
You can also find us on Twitter at Love to See It Pod and Instagram at Claire and Emma Pod. And you can find our newsletter on Substack at claireandemma.substack.com.
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Claire E. Fallon.
And I'm at Emma Lady Rose.
We'll be back next week to recap the second week of Michelle's journey to find love.
Can you keep up? I like love.
Stitcher.